Hi, Khalil. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey John, nice to meet you and thanks for having me.
You got it, bro. So, Khalil Zlaoui of CaseBlink. Before we start getting into talking about AI and how it's going to affect all our businesses, because what's your expertise in, could you give us some background of how you got involved in AI and especially immigration kind of AI with caseblink.com? And I guess even backing up that, what's your background? Where are you from? And where are your co-founders from? And how did you get into getting in the immigration space? It's a lot of questions
Yes.
there. Sorry, it's like five questions in one.
I'll start with my background. I grew up in Tunisia in North Africa, and at 18, I moved to Europe. I moved to France, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at the time, so I ended up going to business school. I studied financial mathematics, so the application of math in stock markets. And I ended up working as a trader and financial engineer for about 2 years. Didn't love that. And so I wanted to go back to school and do something different, which I did. And this was more than 12 years ago. Data science was the new thing, right? Kind of
Mhm.
like what AI is right now.
Yeah.
And so I went back to school and I studied data science, knowing that I wanted to see the applications of math in a different industry. And so I ended up going into healthcare. And I had an opportunity to come here into the US and study biostatistics, which is the application of statistics to healthcare data, and ended up doing research on statistical genetics, looking at the interactions between mutations in the DNA and the onset of psychiatric disorders. Then worked at CVS Health, evaluating care management interventions and population health. So using a lot of statistics and prediction models. And ultimately, I worked at Google, where I was on the Google for Clinicians team, building AI for physicians, helping them make sense of clinical notes data.
No, it is
So
really nosy, but I'm an immigration. I have to ask: were these like on F1 visas, OPT, or J's? Or
so that's the connection with immigration, right? So I came on an F1 and then had a CPT, an OPT, an H1B, and then, well, the rest of the story comes later, but eventually an
nice,
NIW and an O1.
nice.
Um, and so, yes, the connection to immigration is that I have always been an immigrant myself here in the US, and I've experienced the joys of the process and how complex it is
Yeah,
and time consuming. Um, but yeah, so I've always been interested in data science, artificial intelligence, and so I was actually part of the 6% that got let go at Google, and it was kind of like a blessing and a curse because I always wanted to start something of my own, and I wasn't sure why. So that was a good moment for me to think about that and maybe make plans for what I wanted to do, right? And while that was going on, I applied to a national interest waiver because I wanted to stay in the US. And that's what my attorney recommended at the time. The backlog wasn't as bad.
yeah.
And so going through the process, I realized how time consuming it was and certainly complex for the attorney to put together a complex case like that. And this was around the time when the ChatGPT was becoming, popular. Maybe the version was 3.5, and so I was playing around with the tool a little bit and realized I see an opportunity of leveraging large language models to make things more efficient for attorneys preparing these cases. And that's how CaseLink came together. In terms of my co-founders, so you know a little bit more about my background now, mostly data science, a little bit business and entrepreneurship, but mostly data science and artificial intelligence. And so I definitely needed someone with background in immigration and also someone who would help me build the tool. So make sure that the infrastructure is scalable and strong. And so that's how Tina and John came into play. So Tina is a business immigration attorney, and John is a technologist and infrastructure engineer, and actually three times founder. So I was just
Nice.
a great team to be building exactly what we do now.
Well, what was the initial product you were trying? And I guess it's still probably the main product, but that you were trying to design for in the NIW space.
Yeah, the very first version was you put in some documents and it will give you a first draft. That's how we started. But fast forward to today, it's a much more end-to-end product. It really helps with document assembly, organizing documents, making sense of them, understanding what's important in those documents to use in your drafts, reviewing them,
Hmm.
and then research as well, right? So you're preparing a case. A lot of these cases require research. So it's tailored research based on the area of expertise, based on any government resources, you know, specific things like journal impact factors if they're a researcher, circulation, things like that. So both regulatory research, but also very much tailored to the case type. And finally, the drafting. And the drafting, it's easy to say, well, here's your, legal brief and deal with it. But in reality, it's much more complex than this. Attorneys are used to their own style or their own templates or structures. So it's hard to force, a style on someone. And therefore it had to be a lot of customizations and just, different writing styles, different exhibit numberings, things like that. All the way to the packet assembly, which is a very important piece of the process. And I only realized this later on while we were building this product.
So how does it? Does there memory per user that knows what this particular attorney the way and they like to organize their package?
Yeah, so it's very well. It's hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
So every person that comes to you will say, "I like, I like this exhibit numbering style, or I like this length, or I like this paragraph here, or I like this being referenced this way." So it's really hard to build that way because it doesn't scale. So you have to find solutions that scale, right? So um, maybe moving the order of the documents will change the order of the sections, or maybe if you feed in your template, then the draft will follow that structure. Maybe I will give you options for the numbers, right? So you can select how you want it to appear. So it's more solutions like that that would make the app scalable as opposed to something that will um, basically dig a rabbit hole for us, right? Because we can't build something very tailored to one person and then realizing the next person doesn't do it that way.
Interesting. So what you're saying is because I haven't used the software myself, it's um, you give options for how you want to organize it as they're inputting the documents and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, I can talk a little bit more about the spirit of how we wanted to solve this problem, right? So I guess going into this myself with my attorney, what I realized, and of course, uh, I can't generalize this because different firms are more or less open to technology. But I realized at that point that a lot of the process was manual, not because of a lack of willingness to use technology, but because the technology wasn't advanced enough to be able to solve complex problems like this. And so the way that I thought we could solve this problem is to replicate how we as humans approach them. So we can read documents, we understand them, we know what content is important in those documents, we know what information we want to extract from them. So let's build a system that does that. A document understanding system that knows, okay, I'm building an O1. I need to find publications. I need to label them. I need to do research about impact factors. So that's kind of the process that we use to solve the problem, right? And then after that, it's well, what information do I have that enables me to perform tailored and very specific research? I extracted this journal name, so now I can perform research about its impact factors, and I can research how prestigious it is based on those extractions. And then now that I have I made sense of the data and its importance, now I can just use that and start drafting, knowing what is important, right?
Yeah.
So those are the systems that we built from the very beginning. So document understanding system, a case research system, a customized drafting system, and then on top of that, the document assembly.
Okay. What? And now you said like AI enables creative solutions to these. Are there any other creative things that have come out of this that you've dealt with?
Yeah, so what I really like about AI is it forces you to build creatively.
Hmm.
And there's like the sky is the limit in terms of how you want to approach a problem and how you want to build it. If you need to classify documents, you can use AI. If you need something to review documents, you can use AI. If you need a judge, right, judging the quality of the drafts, you can also train an AI to do that.
Real
Um,
quick, I just did an NIW and I got permission from my clients and I put our cover letter inside ChatGPT and they're like, "Is this proof of NIW?" I said, "Yes, but here's some parts to add to it." So it's interesting. So we added some keywords here and there, and I would repeat through it. So it's pending right now. We'll see if it gets approved pre and processing. But that was the first time I just put it to AI to get its opinion on it.
yeah, no, it's really great because it sometimes also makes gives you a different
Yeah.
perspective, which is very interesting. But
Someone could read it immediately
uh,
and give you feedback. Whereas if I give it to like my colleagues in the firm, say, okay, I got to find time to read it. They might miss something. It's 15, 20 pages. They know they're going to miss, but the AI, like, I was like really fascinating. So there's this fear that AI is going to take over, but more and more as I use it, it's an accelerant. It's kind of like, I could take me 10 minutes to run a mile, but if I get in a car, I'll get that mile done. The car is not going to stop me from the human being from moving. It's just going to make it faster and open up a whole world of opportunity for them.
So I think beyond that, they aren't just like text models, right? They're not just giving you text. You can the way I think about large language models is they have semantics embedded, so they can talk back to you, and it to some extent it's logical. We can't say that they're aware at
Yeah.
this point. We don't like then we get into how do we define consciousness and things like that. But what I really like about the possibilities today is that you can empower them with tools. And I don't know if you've heard the term AI agent before, but it's essentially empowering a large language model with a tool. So you can give it web search. So you give the large language model the ability to search on the web and then find information that makes sense. Or you can empower it with a data set, right? Database
Hmm.
of information where you want it to search from. And it's able to find accurate information. So you're basically expanding the knowledge of the baseline large language model to be able to get exactly what you want. And so you can get really creative in terms of how you use that, how you empower those large language models with which resources, and also how do you give them a very specific task such that it's not a general task like, hey, here's my thing and like review it for me, but it's really I'm looking for this very particular piece of information. You're able to some extent produce sensible text, but also here's this piece of information that is really relevant to the problem I'm trying to solve. So give me something that's not only sensible but also accurate,
Hmm.
right? So AI agents will help with that. But it could be anything, like any solution that let's say I need to extract information from text. I can use a large language model, right? I need to extract information, I need to draft, I need to classify something, I need to review. All of these you can address with AI.
One thing we're doing for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, and it's free community page on our community page for members. It's a free membership, but we just upload AAO decisions. But right now, we're doing for NIW1
Mhm.
cases, and they say give a
Yeah.
synopsis with the 10 things. What was the employment about? What was the decision? What were the criteria proved, disproved? And it does a really good job. So instead of reading all of them, I can just pick and choose which one I read. But I have things where I do is like I'll give like I upload ChatGPT only has a limit. If I do more than 12 cases, it just can't do it.
Yeah.
But I'll upload 12 and it'll give me like 11 decisions. And I'm like, I uploaded 12. It's like, oh, sorry. And then I'll do 12. So I'm just like, that part throws
Mhm.
me off why it's like messing up. You think it's a robot, it will just do what you ask it to. But it's kind of like
Yeah.
a kid that doesn't want to fully listen or is lazy or something like that. That's one of the challenges I found. Is a GPT considered an AI agent?
Say that one more time.
It's
Is
like
it?
Chat GPT has those private GPTs that you could do. Is the GPT like an AI agent or it can be an AI agent?
It has. I think it has AI agent. So, for example, the search, right? Sometimes when you ask it a question, then it starts saying, "Okay, let me search for that," right?
Yeah.
Instead of giving you the answer right away. When it's triggering that search, it's because it's going to use an AI agent that is going to do that search for you,
Mm.
right? So that's yes. So definitely, it has those. The that system. Um, but yeah. So
So a question, but all over the place. But just it's fascinating. Like another thing is like I've been asking like the same legal question from ChatGPT and Grok AI because people are saying Grok's really good, and like
Yeah.
ChatGPT will be correct, where Grok will give me like really good answers that are wrong. So this guy throws me off.
Yeah. So back to your point about, I give it 10, 11, 12 things and it gives me 11.
Yeah,
Um, that is very much related to the context window, which is, I give you too much information and I'm only going to like memorize 80% of it. And therefore it's going to forget that last document, right? So that is that is not only a problem of today, but it was even more so the case 2 years ago. So when we started building with large language models, the context windows were much smaller, and so we needed to work with that,
yeah,
right? So one of the challenges with building with large language models is that you're building with models that are constantly evolving, but you're building at a specific point in time. So if today I'm building with a smaller context window, I'm going to make sure that, I'm building a system around that, so I can, make sure the text is shorter and the tasks are, more precise
more
and shorter.
efficient. Yeah,
But as models are improving, then maybe, in 6 months, the example you gave earlier, it will actually take those 12 documents, or
yeah,
however many you uploaded the first time, and it will not forget the last one. um, what I find very interesting today is that, so I use ChatGPT to code sometimes, and I find it extremely helpful, but also it's usually convinced about things that aren't true, right? So it gives you an answer, and it looks extremely convinced that it has the right answer.
yeah.
And so I'm convinced because I'm reading, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, it makes sense. I'm kind of looking through the code and, oh yeah, that I'm going to use this. And then I implement it and it doesn't work.
Hmm.
And then I go back to it and say, hey, like this didn't work. Like the same way that you
Yeah.
were saying, right? Like I gave you 12
I've had
documents.
that
Why
too
is,
because I did some coding for my websites or how to like calculate the filing date on stuff, and then when you call it out
yeah.
on it, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. You're like, what do you should have caught this.
So I think they trained it to be like very agreeable. When you disagree with it, it will say, "Oh, you're right. I made a mistake." But it's just it doesn't know that it doesn't really understand that it made a mistake
Yeah,
or how. So you have to guide it back and forth. So I sometimes I find myself like wasting time with it, and then after I had this instance like 2 weeks ago, and we were going back and forth, Chat GPT and I, about a piece of code, and I was like, you know what? I don't think you get my problem, so I'm just gonna go back and code it myself. Um, but it's great because if you give it a very targeted problem, and it's not too involved, not too complex, it will solve it well,
yeah,
right? But if that problem expands and it becomes very complex, then you need to figure out a system to make it work. And that's part of what we do, right? So putting together a case like a national interest waiver, you can't just give a few documents to ChatGPT and ask it to like prepare a packet
yeah,
and gives you the output. So the creative solutions that we work on are pretty much around that, right? So limiting hallucinations, figuring out context windows that make sense in terms of giving you precise outputs, and then also expanding its knowledge base with the right information, the right resources, so the right data sets, and just the right tools to
mhm.
be able to do what you want it to do, and also constantly reviewing and improving the outputs.
Yeah. What do you mention? It changed every 6 months. I have little kids, and it's like every 6 months they grow, and the way you interact with them has to change because they're smarter, they have more ability, but they're still kids. So you can't just like say, okay, it's an adult I can rely on. Even adults you can't rely on. So there has to be like, yeah, like a team like yours that's kind of has a leash on it and is checking constantly, because it's a moving target. Now there's a lot of use out of it, but you have to keep an eye on it and keep updating it.
Yeah.
It's never done. It's not like you could create it and then you're like, all right, peace out, I'm out of here. So you have to always manage the system.
Yeah, but I like that analogy very much because the way that you're guiding it now is going to be different from the way that
Yeah.
you get it in 6 months or 1 year. So it's very challenging to build like that because you basically need to build and think about what would this will look like 6 months or 12 months from now. Let's say I built a solution that gives me like 70%. Should I put like 10x the effort to get it to 80%, or should I wait for the next model
Yeah.
improvement that will make the model more complete, follow instructions
Exactly.
better? um, And this is a problem that I know all other like AI startups are facing right
Hmm.
now, right? So they build, if they build like a with a baseline model, and fine tune, like, and the model gets upgraded, then do they upgrade the model? Do they use a reasoning model, or do they keep fine tuning? It's very much a case by case thing, but yes, it's definitely
Well,
challenging.
like one thing I saw, I was watching TikTok this morning, is Duolingo, the language software, said we're only going to hire AI people, and it's like going to fire a lot of staff. And then they were making fun of. They were saying like, well, right now ChatGPT, I could talk in different languages with it and practice with it anyways. So is Duolingo even necessary anymore when you could just practice languages? I mean, Duolingo, they do the job of kind of creating a world around it to keep you entertained in it. So I'm not sure if like an open LM model is going to do the same. But it's like,
Mm.
is yeah, they thought they were saving money by hiring AI. At the same time, the AI may be able to do what's part large chunks of what they do. So it's such a hard thing because it's moving and no one has any idea which direction it's going. You just got to like stay on the horse and ride it. So that's pretty much it.
Oh, my best way to practice Spanish, by the way, is to use ChatGPT and talk to it, not Duolingo. So,
I got to do that because I've been trying to learn Spanish for years now. I've paid expensive courses, private tutors, Duolingo, and my vocabulary is huge, but I can't talk it. But that's like, there's stupid things I can't figure. That's kind of goes to the next thing of like how lawyers are adapting. It's like I'm trying to get it where I could talk with the chat GPT instead of typing it out. And everyone says they're talking on their phone, they just talk and talks back. I can't figure out how to do that. And I've asked how to do that. And like, I'm not sure why I can't figure it out, but it's like very simple, which kind of leads to the next thing is lawyers are usually slow to adapt to technology. What
yeah.
difficulties are you seeing around adoption for your software?
Yes. 2 years ago, it was a completely different conversation. So the reactions I would get most of the time, um, would be that AI would never be able to do something like this. But very quickly, the mindset has evolved. And so it's a mix. It's folks who come very much open mind and are willing to work with 60%, 80% of what they would want, and other people who expect it to be 100%, and like the smallest thing, that's like the smallest issue, they would kind of focus on the negative as opposed to the
Yeah.
positive. But overall, things have changed for sure, and I'm seeing a lot of excitement around using AI and understanding how, like, beyond just, okay, here's the draft for you, right? It's not that. It's the workflow automation behind it that matters. It's the fact that you're able to do something 80% faster.
Yeah.
You can take more of these cases, you can focus on your clients, and these are things happening in real life. Some of the folks that we work with that are using AI, they're telling us, okay, I'm a little, I'm faster now, and I can either take more cases or focus on other things. So I guess, yeah, that was early on. It was kind of like trying to challenge that AI is not
Yeah.
going to. I don't like to use the word replace me, because I don't really think that it's about that. Um, this is really about assembling a packet, and I don't think that is most of what the attorneys work.
Yeah.
It's more about the strategy of the case. It's more about counseling and, yeah, um, helping you make the right decisions given your situation. So I think about case preparation as, you know is sometimes it's like like uh, the mundane tasks,
Mhm.
right? So you probably don't want to be labeling like 100 documents,
That's
because
true.
you're the foreign national shared, a mess of a Google Drive, and you need to go through every single one of them and organize them and label them. I don't think that's
Yeah, that
work that
takes the
anyone
hour or
wants
two
to do.
sometimes to just labeling. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I also don't think that you want to read like 100-page book about someone's publication. I mean, maybe you are. Maybe it's something you're interested in. But to the towards the end goal of putting together a compelling case, maybe that you don't have to, right? So using AI to extract the important pieces of that publication is maybe a better use of your time. Um,
One of the biggest hindrances toward expanding my EB practice has been why I shut it down years ago. I'm just recently slowly bringing it back. Is like I'll get 5 cases all of a sudden, but it's like not practical because
Mhm.
it's such a small firm. Each case takes so long to do because of all these even nuanced stuff, like not nuanced, but like case files, writing attachments, organize all this kind of stuff. That's really piecemeal work. That's like not the most complex, but just time consuming. That it makes it limit how many we could do. Or else the case just stays delayed. Something that should be done in like maybe could get done in a month ends up taking 4 or 5 months because there's so much back and forth, so much reading this and that. So if you just get the case out faster, that opens it up for me to be able to get another case sooner with my because my my caseload opens up much faster.
And a lot of that is now automatable. So you can just dump in 100 documents and have the AI read them, extract the information that you want, and the most important parts that will end up in your drafts, and then clicking a button and having AI organize the exhibit for you and putting documents that are close to each other in meaning, let's say like a publication and information about that publication after one after the other. So a lot of that is now automatable.
Mhm.
And it's, I think, yeah, so when we talk about AI, these are not the first things we think about, especially like large language models. We like our thought directly goes to it's a draft or it's text,
Yeah.
but it's the automation of the workflow, the organizing the documents that is a big part of this. Um, Going back to your question though about adoption, I think what's also challenging, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that ultimately teams want drafts that resemble there's like packets that look like what they do, right?
Mhm.
And so and again, like, yes, so that is, and that in itself is a challenge. Like you can't force a style on someone. And so I feel like the more customizable they are, the more they resemble how you're used to doing it, the more you're open to using
Yeah.
the technology.
Less change for the lawyers. Like, oh,
And
this looks familiar, and it does it. Yeah.
well, less change also because you don't want to spend more time reviewing, right? You're used to, let's say you're reviewing a draft that a writer or paralegal put together. You know, you're expecting that section at that given time, or like that description of the employer, and you're getting a completely new draft where now you have to pay attention to every single detail, right? So you're used to a certain template with certain information and only reviewing specific things, and now you're getting something completely different, and it actually ends up taking you more time if it's AI generated.
We have that
But
issue with for our firm. We have this long questionnaire. It's a PDF that clients would fill out, but the way we designed it is 5 pages. I could just go through it really fast and see all the important things I need to know. But what we would do is then, like a paralegal would take that information, input it into the forms, and that would time consuming, and there would be errors that happen in that. So we finally gave in with the case software we have, where they fill out the application online and autofills. But then when we want to review
mm,
that initial intake, it's on several different pages, and the wording is spread out a different way, so it takes longer for us. I can't just go zoom and because I already know that form, so I know it's. But it takes like
mhm.
5 times, 10 times longer even, and it's like it's hard to adjust the software because again, that's the problem with the forms we're having. It's like I can't review my intake in the way I like to. And when we download the PDF, it comes like 20 pages. There's always spacing is bad, so it's like oh, these are the problems that happen. That although the technology causes less errors from transferring, that initial part where I just want to do a quick check comes harder. So one part gets easier, one part gets harder. It's a balancing thing.
So we've been innovating in the drafting space, right? Because 2 years ago there was nothing to do what we do today. I mean, nowadays there are more and more startups catching up
Yeah.
and trying to compete and do this. But one of the realizations when we started Case Blank was there are there are ways, or there's room for improvement for drafting and all that, but there's also room for improvement for everything
Yeah.
else, like forms management, communications. And so we are building those features as well. So we're expanding CaseBlink to also help with filling forms in an intelligent way, and then later on more case management systems that really make it end to end. So the vision is not just kind of like a disconnected platform that helps you with drafting, but it's really end to end. It'll help you automate the drafting of the forms, of the letters, the packet itself,
Mhm.
and also have some of those nice, case management, case tracking features that you're used to in your case management system.
That field is already competitive. It's getting super competitive. It's like you can't sleep in that field. So thanks so much for coming on. If when is I'm going to ask you how people could reach out to you, but are you going to be at the AILA conference in this Colorado in June?
Yes, CaseBlink's one of the sponsors of the conference, so we'll be there. We're also sponsoring a few sessions.
Nice.
We also have a CLE session on Saturday about RFEs, and that will be very interesting, with very interesting figures in AI as well who are presenting with us. Otherwise, the website caseblink.com. We also have free trials, so anyone who's interested, they can try us out as well.
Very cool. I got a booth there at the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, so I got to look at the charts, see where your booth is. Well, definitely take some photos in person when we see each other.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Don.
Awesome, Khalil. Stay on the line, but again, thank you so much for coming. And caseblink.com is the place to go. I appreciate you coming on the show once again.
Thank you.